I welcome in a nightcap recap. Week 7 of the NFL season officially in the books, at least the Sunday action. And what a Sunday it was, full of epic comebacks. I mean, you talk about what happened in Denver, just one of the most insane fourth quarters you're ever going to see. You see a walking wounded San Francisco 49ers team just punch a really good Falcons defense in the mouth and take care of business in Santa Clara. And you saw some championship caliber teams make some emphatic statements throughout the day. If you're joining us, let me know what you're sipping in the comments and welcome in. All right, so let's just start with the Sunday night game. And what a performance by the San Francisco 49ers, who just last week lost their emotional leader in Tampa Bay in Fred Warner. And they just come out and they don't skip a beat. It doesn't matter the best players on that roster, that their injured reserve, the players who are, sidelined due to injury could make up an all-pro team or a Pro Bowl team. They just continue to overcome adversity. No Fred Warner, no problem. Bryce Huff explodes back onto the scene in Robert Saleh's defense, as we kind of all expected that he would after he wound up signing there earlier this spring. Gets another sack tonight. Tatum Bethune steps in at middle linebacker in place of Fred Warner, flying to the football all night long. He finishes with 10 tackles. But the big story for the 49ers in that offense with Mac Jones, without Brock Purdy, without Jawan Jennings, without Ricky Pearsall, it's Christian McCaffrey, as it has been since his arrival in San Francisco. Just a bust-out performance. In a lot of ways, Christian McCaffrey was the offense for the 49ers on Sunday night. 129 rushing yards, 2 scores. He adds 8 catches for 72 yards. That's 201 yards from scrimmage if you're keeping track at home. And they win 20-10 over the Falcons. And somehow, some way, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and Robert Saleh have this team at 5-2, sitting atop the NFC West going into the action with the Seahawks playing the Texans late on Monday night. But you look at that team right now, they just find ways to get it done. And, I'm not sure how seriously to take a team that's so banged up. Are they going to be able to overcome what the Detroit Lions weren't able to a year ago, especially when you look around a conference that has the number one offense in the league in the Dallas Cowboys, in a conference that has the Philadelphia Eagles, who we'll get to in a little bit here, who just seem to continue to find ways to win themselves. And you look over in the NFC North, it's now the Green Bay Packers leading that division, but they needed a frenetic comeback to beat Jacoby Brissett and the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not sure what to make of Green Bay. They're similar to the 49ers, not nearly as banged up, but they find ways to win, but they just make it more difficult on themselves every single week, whether it's not protecting a big lead and having to fight and claw and scratch the entire game against the Bengals last week, or the tie in Dallas, or today falling behind big early and needing a big fourth quarter comeback. The Packers really are interesting to me, and they're in a pretty loaded division, but we'll see what happens there. One game that I didn't really touch on in the column, but I was paying cursory attention to throughout the day today, was Dolphins and Browns. And part of the story here is Quinshawn Judkins. He's the rookie of the week in the column, by the way. 84 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's off to one of the most dynamic, electrifying, and prolific starts for a rookie running back that we've seen in quite some time, kind of mirroring what we saw from Saquon Barkley back when he was chosen number 2 overall by the Giants back in 2018. But the big story in Cleveland, what we all are going to be talking about on Monday, is Mike McDaniel. The play calling was atrocious. It was terrible. Tua Tagovailoa was benched after passing for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. And we saw this past week on Tuesday, Brian Callahan was the first coach who was fired. I have to think that if the Dolphins didn't launch Mike McDaniel into Lake Erie after that game, I don't know how he makes it to his Monday press conference. I mean, that was terrible. It's very obvious to me that the Dolphins have quit. There's no fight in that team. The situational play calling by the coaching staff has been terrible. And I've said this several times, that there was some real shock, surprise, and astonishment that both Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel survived Black Monday back in January. I don't know how McDaniel survives going into next week after that performance on Sunday. That was one of the worst games that I've seen in some time by a team. They weren't prepared to play. They didn't seem all that interested in being there. They were out physicaled. Just not good. Bad news all around. And I'm surprised that Mike McDaniel wasn't the first coach to be fired this year. I have little doubt in my mind that he's going to be the second. Although, coughing up a game the way the Cardinals did today, Jonathan Gannon probably isn't long for his job either. But from the complete negative side of the ledger to one of the more positive storylines that emerged and is emerging, the Chiefs are firing on all cylinders. I hate to break it to you, that's bad news for about 31 other teams, but they look like the most dangerous offense in football right now. Patrick Mahomes looks like Patrick Mahomes again. We wrote about it in the column last week that he was starting to feel himself. There was starting to be some momentum last week on Sunday night against a banged up Lions defense. They just went out today and sapped the life and sucked the will out of the Las Vegas Raiders at home, making a statement. They continue to own the division. They continue to own and dominate the Las Vegas Raiders. And today, Rashee Rice comes back, his first game back. They target him 10 times. Rice catches 7 of those passes for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Chiefs move to 4-3. It's October 19th today. You're probably listening to this on the way into work on October 20th. Does it really matter that this is the first time that the Chiefs are over 500 this year? Does it really matter that they're just now 4-3? Does the 1-3 start to the season really matter? We all had a lot of hand wringing. We all certainly wrote columns about how worried should we be about the Chiefs. What's the level of concern about Kansas City? Are they taking a step back? Is this the year that Mahomes doesn't, get to survive at the last second like they did a year ago? Well, now they're healthy. Now they have all their weapons. Now you're seeing the impact of Xavier Worthy's speed. Now you're seeing the impact of having a full complement of receivers with Rashee Rice coming back. You're seeing Mahomes just dominate as he has 286 yards, 3 touchdowns, got to basically sit out the fourth quarter, get the afternoon off late in the day. And as one NFL scout has texted me and told me several times at several junctures of a couple of Chiefs games this year, look out. And I think that those are the 2 best words to describe the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs as they stand today after what they did to the Raiders this afternoon. Look out for Kansas City. But the team who beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl a year ago, they might be the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the entire NFL. And of course, I'm talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. But I do think, and I know that we've talked a lot on the podcast with Mike Tanier the last several weeks. I know that I've written it in the column several times that the Eagles seem like they have been searching through the early part of this season for some semblance of some sort of identity. I think they found an identity today. And, it's saying something that Saquon Barkley is held to 2.4 yards per carry, only rushes for 44 yards, and it really didn't matter. Saquon Barkley was a non-factor. Brian Flores and the Chiefs followed in the footsteps of the Vance Joseph and the Denver Broncos, followed in the footsteps of certainly the New York Giants last Thursday night of taking Saquon Barkley out of the game. But the difference is today, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense didn't need Saquon Barkley. They went back to the well that has been so abundant for them over the last couple of years, and that's the vertical passing game to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Jalen Hurts finishes with a perfect 158.3 passer rating, now the 3rd quarterback in Eagles history to have a perfect passer rating, joining Donovan McNabb and Nick Foles. But A.J. Brown, story of the day. 4 catches, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith goes off for 9 catches, 183 yards, and a score. And there was a late dagger in that game, a bomb down the field to basically put the game out of reach for the Minnesota Vikings, emblematic and very similar to what we saw in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. But that was against Brian Flores' defense. That was a really good defense. There I say a championship caliber defense on that side of the field, and they were kind of overshadowed, not just by Jalen Hurts with a perfect passer rating, not just by what Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown did, but by Vic Fangio's defense. Well, let's face it, the pick six or just a brilliant play call. I talked to Garrett Cobb about it after the game, former Eagles linebacker. You'll read about that in the column on Monday, but just a masterful play design by Fangio to basically drop everybody into coverage, including edge rusher Alex Hunt. And Jalen Carter levels Carson Wentz in the backfield, forces an errant throw. Hunt makes a pay. returns it for a touchdown. On the next series, Wentz is picked off by Andrew Makuba down the sideline. That Eagles defense created turnovers. That Eagles defense set the offense up with short fields. And I thought for everything that Jalen Hurts and the offense did really well, they played complementary football for one of the few times we've seen Philadelphia do that so far this year. And you look at the Pantheon in the NFC, you have to now talk about it being teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, teams like the Detroit Lions, teams like the Green Bay Packers. San Francisco is now in that mix after what we've seen from them, just surviving all of these injuries, thriving and getting wins, finding ways to win every week. It's been impressive, and the NFC is going to be a gauntlet. I'm excited for what we're going to see in Detroit on Monday when you have Tampa Bay with an MVP caliber quarterback and Baker Mayfield going into Ford Field against a really good Lions team, a place where the Buccaneers won last week. The Lions looking to get healthy, looking to bounce back from what we saw in Arrowhead last Sunday night. But I think looking around, big picture around the NFL today, what more can you say about that crazy comeback in Denver? What more can you say about Bo Nix? 3 wins in a row, comeback wins for Bo Nix. 3 this year. He has 6 so far in his career. Just a preview of what you'll see in the column. We break down that game about the back and forth and kind of the stages of quarterback development and how Jackson Dart might be ahead of schedule for a rookie. But Bo Nix is now becoming one of the more clutch quarterbacks in the NFL. And I spoke to an AFC executive in the AFC East to explain to me what he thinks is powering this emergence of Bo Nix's clutch gene. You can read about that in the column. We talked about the Eagles. They're the lead, and what Jalen Hurts and the offense were able to do. We also get into Drake May. I mean, listen, I talked to one of his former teammates about Drake May and what is powering his second year emergence. I mean, you look at what he's doing every week. There seems to be another comparison to Tom Brady that comes out statistically speaking. All that stuff is a little bit too premature for me. But May is just finding ways to be prolific from the pocket. Mike Vrabel goes down there, gets his revenge against his former team. We break down that game inside the column. The Cowboys, I talked to Hall of Famer Drew Pearson briefly about Dak Prescott and how he's playing at an MVP level. What's been the difference for Dak this time around? What's fueling that offense? And an NFL scout opens up about how the Cowboys are cashing in on what they envisioned and what they imagined George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb would develop into. So it's a loaded column, lots of insight. I appreciate everybody hanging out. If you have any questions you want to ask before we get out of here, if you just want to share what you're sipping on during this Nightcap recap, it's the good scotch here. It felt like a good night to bust out the good scotch. But I really do appreciate everybody hanging in there, checking in every week. These are a lot of fun to do after the Sunday night game to kind of close the book on Sunday's action. You can check out 4 Downs in Between the Hash Marks. It goes out to subscribers first thing tomorrow morning. And I'll be back on Tuesday with Mike Tanya for the Between the Hash Marks podcast. So everybody enjoy your night. Thanks for checking on the Nightcap recap, and cheers.